Hello everyone, it's Emiliano here, and in this episode I interview Darren Weeks, who is a Canadian rich dad advisor. Darren has been a businessman, investor, and capital raiser for companies such as Royal Caribbean International. He's also the author of the book The Art of Raising Capital. In our conversation, you will be able to listen to Darren and I talk about his book, his journey, about a concept called the BI Triangle, and more. I hope you receive value from this episode, and feel free to share it in your social media accounts or recommend it to someone that might need it. I hope you enjoy, and thanks for listening. So, hey everybody, I am Emiliano Darren, and I want to present myself properly because we have had some conversations, but I haven't presented to you what I do. And so, again, my name is Emiliano. I'm the founder of the Reader Lounge, and the Reader Lounge is a social media page which is intended to be a leverage tool for people globally to help them on their transformation journey. And in the case of the podcast, I interview interesting and wise people and leaders to help other people on their transformation journey. And in this case, you're one of those people. And well, I would like you to present yourself and tell us a bit about your journey.
Well, my journey is extensive because I'm getting older. I really appreciate you interviewing me, and I wish I would have had this insight when I was your age. My name is Darren Weeks, and I was always very entrepreneurial. I wanted to be rich when I was younger. So I always did really unique things, just as you're doing right now. I did unique things when I was younger. And most of it just entitled working really hard. You know, I'm from Canada, so it was delivering newspapers when there was snow on the ground, or shoveling snow from the sidewalks for my neighbors, and then starting different part-time jobs and eventually starting my own businesses and investing when I was very, very young. And all those things kind of gave me somewhat of a foundation to start to realize that I wasn't very good at school. I really didn't like school, although I did go to university because I was told by society, go to university. So I did receive a business degree, but I learned far more when I was going to school because I was always doing things in the business world. I remember starting my own t-shirt company in university. I remember investing in the oil market a lot. Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait much before you were ever born. And when that happened, oil prices went up. So it's kind of crazy when I look back, but I took all my student loans and put it into the oil markets, and luckily things went up. And then finally, I bought my first property when I was a university student. So I kind of did both things. You know, society says you should go to school and get good grades so you can get a good job. Well, I didn't get very good grades, so I was really worried I would never get a job because I got some of the worst marks in university. So that's why I did things on the side, and those things, benefited me, but I really didn't have any mentorship. I never would have thought of something like this. And obviously the internet didn't exist back then. But when I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that's when things really changed a lot. And my life has changed ever since that considerably. And probably just because I turned my brain back on. Like, I have to be honest, when I was in university, I just did enough to get through. I had to work every day to make money. I didn't like school. I wasn't very good at it. So I would just study enough to get through. And literally the minute I left the classroom, if I was doing a test, I would forget everything. It was just, I don't care, I'm out. So when I met Robert Kiyosaki, he's the one that really turned me back on as far as my mind is my most powerful asset. And if you study things you like and you enjoy, like you're teaching, there's so many opportunities. So that's a little bit of my background in a lengthy answer.
Okay, and well, I know you wrote this book, right? The Art of Raising Capital, and
Yes.
it is actually part of the collection of Rich Dad books, right? And well, I would appreciate if you could talk and tell us more about how was the experience of writing this book, and also how was the experience of getting to know Robert Kiyosaki and writing this book.
Well, first of all, maybe start with Robert Kiyosaki. When I first was introduced to his book, it was 2001. And he was just on Oprah Winfrey, and, he's traveling all over the world, hosting events, huge events, like 25,000, 50,000 people. That's a lot of people. He was on stage with Trump for many of them. He wrote books with Trump. So like any kind of rock star, popular person, it's not easy to get close to them because, everybody wants something from people like that. So one of the greatest lessons that he taught me, and I was doing it without being taught, I was just too dumb to know the difference. But one of the greatest lessons he taught me was the more you give, the more you shall receive. Now, that's obviously a biblical lesson, but the more that I gave, and when it comes to giving, it was the more that I would teach financial education, because that's what I did. I became a facilitator for the Rich Dad organization. And it was kind of like a hobby business that Robert's company tried to create to get people to play this cash flow game that he created. And I was the only one crazy enough to make a business out of it. Like, there was 200 people that tried. It cost $10,000 just to try. And you didn't even get to meet Robert, right? But I started to play his game. In the first event, I had 4 people. And then I had 8 people, and then 11, and then it just kept growing. And what Robert notices is he notices people's actions, just like with you. I mean, I notice your actions. We talked a few months ago. You said you're going to do something like this. Now you did it. Most people don't follow through. So what Robert has taught me is you really want to judge people by their actions, not their words. So it's deeds, not words. So, I'm playing the cash flow game in front of bigger and bigger crowds. And I'll never forget, it was in about 2004. Robert Kiyosaki this time really has no idea who I am. I would go to his seminars. I'd go pay $5,000 to go to a seminar. But eventually he invited me because he heard I was hosting these cash flow games all over Canada. And it's the only one of 200 people that kind of made it. And, I was now speaking to 500 people at once playing cash flow. And the cash flow game that Robert and his wife Kim created, in my opinion, it's like his baby. He just loves the game, because if you play the game, first of all, you have fun. So it's a great way to learn. And we encourage mistakes. So if you make a mistake in a game, it doesn't really matter. Just play again. So what we suggest is we'd rather you make a mistake in the game than real life with real money. So what happened was I just kept having success playing the game to bigger and bigger audiences. So one day, the Rich Dad organization phones me and says, Robert has invited you specifically to a strategic business partners meeting with like 40 people. So I'm amazed, I have chills right now thinking about that first invite. And, some of his biggest business partners were in this meeting. It was very private, maybe 40 people. And I remember meeting, for instance, the president of Warner Brothers. They had a book division. And all his partners, that he was doing business with. So the point of the story is, because I always was giving and doing things just to educate with no real expectation of making money, because I wasn't making any money at the point, Robert saw that. And again, that allowed me to get closer into a circle, because what I find is most people, what they want to do for me or Robert or other people is they always want to take first. So they always want to do is take. And it drives me crazy. Even when I'm on stage, if I teach that principle, people still come up afterwards and want to show me something or pitch something to me. And if they would just realize that if you give first, you're probably going to open up a lot more doors. So again, my answers are probably a little lengthy, but it's really important to set the context that getting to meet Robert was a long process. It didn't happen overnight. And then after that meeting, it was just gradual, At that point, I would then still go to his seminars, and then I would invite, 20 people. And he used to have seminars that cost $5,000, and there would be about 200 people in the room. And maybe 10 or 20 were from Canada, because I invited them. We all paid our full price. So he would start to notice these little things that I was doing. And then one time he asked me if he could come and speak in Canada for me. And then it just kind of got more and more, gradually became more friendly, but he was always testing. He was always watching me at the events. And the more that I listened to Robert and learned from him, the larger my companies would grow. And the book behind you is really another story. What he taught me was, and I never really got this, in around 2006, probably 2007, he said, debt can make you rich. Now, when you were young, did your parents tell you debt can make you rich?
No, no, they didn't. They told me the opposite.
Oh, right. So debt can make you poor if you use it poorly. If you use it in bad ways, like a Visa credit card, that can make you poor. But it can also make you rich. So I started to think, how can I get more debt? And the debt would be paid off by my customers or by my tenants, for instance. So that's when I started to raise capital. And again, Robert didn't really know what I was doing. He knew, but he's a busy guy, and I didn't go tell him, but he took notice when I bought a few thousand properties in the biggest real estate crash in 80 years, back in 2008 and 2009. So it's honestly, he's the one that told me to write the book, and he created the title. I didn't want to write a book because to me, a book is, a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to write a book and make money. No, it's just a business card. A book is, to me anyway, a book is like credibility. And our company was growing so fast, and I didn't need any more customers. I hate to say that. I didn't need any more. So I don't want to do a book. It's just going to make things worse. We're so busy. But when Robert says you're going to write a book, then you write a book. So that's kind of the story. Do you want to know how much of that book I wrote?
Yes, that would be interesting.
Well, maybe just open up. Tell me how many pages in that book. I have no idea. How many pages
I think
are in
it's
my book?
133 pages long.
Okay. So the only page I wrote in that book is the introduction.
For real?
That's it. Page. Because it's my material, and I'll tell the story, but what Robert teaches, and I've always thought about this, is like, why do I have to do everything? I failed school. I almost got kicked out of university. I can't write a book. And I don't have the discipline to sit down and write a book. And, I didn't need a book. So I had a course on how to raise capital, and my sales manager and a ghostwriter, they had to study the course, and they wrote the book. So it's my stuff, don't get me wrong, but Robert programmed my brain to be different. And I want to go to the beach right now. I went for a good mountain bike ride earlier. I don't want to be bogged down doing things. So that's the story about the book. I never wanted to write it. I wrote just the introduction, but it is my material, and Robert asked me to write the book, so I did. There, I've told you, never told anybody before.
Whoa, I didn't expect that. But I mean, there are many stories you told of you in the book, right? And I would actually want to get deeper into the book, specifically into the part. There is a chapter in which you talk about raising capital as a business, right? And
Yes.
you also say that you did this some years ago. And also you mentioned that you did, you raised capital for Royal Caribbean, right? And I would like to know more about this story and this stage of your life, specifically the Royal Caribbean part.
Well, the Royal Caribbean Cruise Line deal, Royal Caribbean is like a $10 billion company. So raising money for them was only possible because I did it years and years ago, all by myself, learning the mistakes, learning not to make the same mistakes twice. So it's like anything, people look at somebody and say, wow, you raised all that money, or you did a deal with Royal Caribbean. Well, it still took me probably almost 15 years before I did that deal of raising capital. So years ago, I was buying property. So before I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I owned about 10 properties approximately. And after, 5 or 6, I didn't have any more money. So I thought, how can I start to use other people's money to buy property? So I thought to myself, well, first of all, I need somebody who has a job, so they have some money. And then I also need somebody who doesn't want to buy real estate on their own because they just do it themselves. And then I thought, how do I get in front of people that have money and a job and maybe interest? And the first group of people that came to mind was doctors. Doctors have money. But then I thought, okay, I can't access them. They're always really busy and you can't go see them and ask if they want to invest with you. So I started to look at what industries, what occupations had conventions. So in Canada, teachers have conventions a couple times a year. Thousands of teachers will go to a convention hall. And I started to speak at some of those and explain to people how to make passive income. And then I had a booth, okay? So as teachers would walk by, I would try to have them come and talk to me. I would get their name, their phone number, and then I'd phone them and learn how to raise capital the hard way. So I did that for 2 years, a lot of different conferences. And I made so many mistakes. But I'm glad that I did that, because for the people that are listening, even if you read my book, you're going to get some insight, but you're still going to be terrible at it. You're not going to succeed the first week, okay? Everybody makes mistakes. So what I suggest is I'd rather you make mistakes with people that don't have very much money versus going to doctors first or your wealthy uncle. I'll use that as an example. So don't talk to your rich uncle first, because you're going to screw up. So I made a lot of mistakes talking to teachers, but I also learned a lot and I had some success. Then I went to dentist conventions and I started talking to dentists. And instead of them investing with one deal with me, they would buy 4 or 5 at once. So now I have a lot of properties. So I learned all these lessons again, and then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And when Robert kind of connected the dots in my mind about debt being good, that's when I started to make it a real serious business. So we raised a lot of money in Canada. We had over 5,000 investors, $150 million US dollars. And I think I got to be honest, the thing I liked the most about that business was I never sat down with one investor. I didn't have one investor sit with me one-on-one and do the paperwork up. Because again, my idea is I don't want to do all this work. I created the leads and then my team did everything else. So business and raising capital, it's really a team effort. You can't do it yourself. It wasn't just me. I had a great team of people that helped out. And what you'll learn is if you're good at raising capital, everybody's your friend. Everybody wants to phone you and say, hey, I got a good idea. Can I have some of your money? So the Royal Caribbean Cruise Line called us and they heard about us building another port in Honduras that we built. And they wanted to have some discussions to do a lot of deals, a number of deals. And this is because of the financial crisis back in 2008, 9, 10. Even a multi-billion-dollar company still had difficulties with banks. So they approached me and we built, at least at the time, I don't know if it is anymore, the world's largest cruise ship center in Falmouth, Jamaica.
What year was that?
I think we put the deal together in 2010 and then they had to build it. So maybe it was built in 2012 approximately.
And so you just raised the capital and gave it to them, and that was it?
Well, that was it. They had to build the port. Then, some of the largest cruise ships in the world now dock there. They had to build all the retail space. But as far as the work involved, yeah, that's it. I mean, we have them manage the port. We don't do anything else. We just collect passive income.
Whoa. Yeah, and for anybody who would like to enter this business, what would be your key advice?
There's a lot. I mean, I would really suggest you get experience working for somebody else. Like our company hires people to help us sell. And I don't ever hire somebody and hope they're going to be an employee with me forever. I really want them to learn skills. And I would be thrilled, for instance, on this call, we have a lady named Olga who I've known for a long time, and she's listening just to learn. I'd be thrilled if everybody that listens or works with me eventually does this. And I think if you're going to raise capital, learn how to do it first. Go work for a company that can even pay you to learn to work. And then as far as some of the lessons go, there's so many. I could take a day to teach all the lessons that I've learned, because, even though you have success, you still do things you would never do again. And now that I'm in Mexico, the retirement didn't last very long before we started to do another business of raising capital. But our model now is way better than I did in Canada. It's just far superior, because it's like anything somebody does. If you had to do it all over again, whatever you're good at, you'd be better, right? So there's really too many lessons, but I'd say if you're going to raise money, go learn first, because you're going to make mistakes. And raising money, the problem with raising money is you have to pay it back. You have to give a good return. And if you don't, your career is going to be very, very limited. So people and money and blood, sweat, and tears to make that money, it's a very, very serious subject. And I always want to say this: make sure you also follow all the rules. Every country has different laws when it comes to raising capital, and you need to follow them or you'll go to jail.
Yeah. And well, now talking more about business in general, I would
Sure.
like to know how did you learn about the concept of Robert Kiyosaki, the BI triangle, and how did you apply it, and how would you suggest anyone to apply it?
Well, the way I came across the Guide to Investing, which is a book, was every book Robert would write, I would just buy it and read it. So first of all, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that was a complete game changer for me. Then I read a book called The Cash Flow Quadrants, which a lot of people like better than Rich Dad Poor Dad. But my favorite book of all of his books, he's probably written 20 or more, is the third book that I read, is called The Guide to Investing. And the last 100 pages in that book, there's a concept called the BI triangle. And B stands for business and I stands for investing. So how do you create a successful business or invest successfully? So the B or the I, how do you do it? And this 100 pages describes in general how the BI triangle works. And it really is, it's 8 integrities of a business. And there's 3 integrities that are on the outside of this triangle, and there's 5 in the inside. And the 3 integrities on the outside, that really is what Robert teaches all the time. So Robert is always talking, first of all, about mission. So what is your mission? Like, why do you do these podcasts, for instance?
Well, lately I have been thinking much about that, and now my idea is just to share ways to live truer to yourself, and at the same time to transform. So and that's it. It's mostly about transformation, personal transformation.
Yeah. Do you think you're going to learn a lot by doing these podcasts?
Yeah. I have done 2 interviews and I have learned a lot.
Sure. And for people listening, the cool part is you did not say you're doing this to make money. So if you look at the BI triangle, the most important thing is the base of the triangle is the mission. Why are you doing it? You can tell it comes from your heart. You like to do this, okay? So when you're building a business or investing in a business, you want to make sure it has a very strong mission. That's the first word on the bottom. Then on the side, you've got team. And as I've alluded to today, I can't have any success without a great team. On the other side of the triangle, it's leadership. For every success or every failure, you, the leader, also has to take some responsibility, especially on the failures. So they don't teach, when I took business school, they don't teach you about leadership, building a team, the mission. All they taught me was I should go get a job. I didn't want a job. I'm not a good employee. So that's the outside of the triangle. Now, inside the triangle, there's 5 additional integrities of any business. So if you're going to start a business, eventually you need to know, how can you monetize it? How do you make money? And it's not necessarily just to how to get rich. That's not the point. But you still need money to grow your business. You need money to hire employees. You need money to help more people. So you have to look at the most important thing inside the BA triangle is the cash flow. And same thing if you're going to invest. Like we at the Freedom Investment Club Mexico, we have investments. So obviously when I do my research on the companies that want me to lend them money, I have to ask what their mission is. I look at their team and I look at the leader. But then I need to say, okay, does your concept make money? Is there good profit margins? Is it a product that is needed even during COVID, for instance? So in the BI triangle, first is cash flow. Then there's communication. So our company communicates really well. We do seminars, we do Zoom calls, we do newsletters, and I've got a team of people that also communicate with our investors. Then you have systems. So how can you invest in a company if they don't have systems? Or like I said earlier, the reason I didn't have to write that book behind you is I had systems in place. I had a team in place, I had systems in place so that they could do it themselves. And then finally, you need legal protection. You need to make sure you're doing things legally. So in Mexico, we went to some of the best lawyers in Mexico to make sure that raising capital here was done legally. It's very, very important. And then finally, what's last on the BI triangle is the product. And, I guess it's kind of like this, this is an Apple phone, and these are fairly new earbuds. So Apple has all kinds of different products. No matter what product they launch tomorrow, it's really easy for them to drop this product into their BI triangle or a new product because they've got a really, really strong BI triangle. So what I see and why I like the BI triangle so much is most people, they focus on the product. And there's many people that have products, but they never have any success because they don't have a strong BI triangle. So it's a really, really great concept. I use it all the time to analyze businesses that want my money or my club's money. And it's a great way for entrepreneurs to look at their business and say, okay, am I matching, am I covering all 8 of those integrities? And finally, what are you doing, as everybody listening, what are you doing to become a better leader? And that's personal development. That's what Robert Kiyosaki is all about. When we meet, when I've had private meetings with him, I've traveled over the world with him, we don't talk about making $1 million. We have lots of great conversations, but it's never about money. It's just always about being a better person, learning.
What's your mission, Darren? Or at least the mission of your businesses?
Yeah, well, everyone's a little bit different. I have a coffee business, and that's to have fresh roasted coffee delivered to your door, within days in Canada. And in Mexico, the Freedom Investment Club Mexico, it really is it's a dual mission. First is to educate all Mexicans about financial education, financial literacy. Most of our events are free. We had a Zoom last night, it's free. So I don't only target people that are rich. For instance, most really good investments, most people are never going to hear about them because they don't have the network. So what I pride myself on with FICM is that we have open doors to everybody in Mexico. And if you're young, if you don't have money, it doesn't matter. You can still learn. So one day you can do this on your own. So the first part of our mission is just financial education. And then second of all, we offer different investments because a lot of people would rather invest with Freedom Investment Club than do it on their own because they see the track record and they see the team. And they realize that for all the stress and the heartache and the efforts and the pain, it's just easier to invest in our deals than do something on their own. So that's our mission with Freedom Investment Club Mexico.
Okay.
You know what I want?
Sorry?
I want to add one. What I want is I want our investors to be the smartest investors in the world. I really do. Most people just blindly give their money to the bank, to a broker, and they really don't know anything about their deals. So what we pride ourselves on is having people that are educated, and they meet the owners of the companies they invest in, they meet our team, and they're fully educated on the deal. And to me, that reduces your risk. The more education you have, the less risk you have.
Yes, and that's in general, right? Not just for financial education.
Sure. Absolutely.
And well, I just have 3 more questions before we wrap up. And
Sure.
well, they are brief questions. First, I would like you to to give any advice to your 15-year-old self.
You know, what was the advice I gave you? Do you remember?
The last time we talked about 2 things. One, that I interpreted it as focusing on your own path. And well, my question that day was, how can I get my friends and family involved in finances? So that was one thing, and the other one was that I should start a business as I go to school.
Right. And did I tell you why I think that would work?
I think no.
Okay. What happens is if you knocked on my door and you were asking to do yard work or selling something, I would immediately say yes, because you're 15, right? So you have something called an unfair advantage. And Robert Kiyosaki wrote a book called The Unfair Advantage. It's really a great book. So everybody has an unfair advantage. If I met each person that listened to this, I'd be able to get into what your unfair advantage is. So currently your unfair advantage is you're young. You've got a good attitude, okay? So in Canada, I'll give you a quick story. Where I lived was a pretty nice area. And all the houses were, big houses, large properties. And my son was turning like 9 or something, maybe 10. And I told my son, you have to have a business this summer. He's 10 years old. And of course he procrastinated and he didn't know what to do. And, should he walk dogs or should he, what should he do? And he was too young to cut grass. So the night before, I remember I was flying to Sweden. I said, hey, you got to figure something out. So he decided he was going to be picking weeds. Okay. So he'd be gardening. He's 10 years old. So he created a flyer and he came to my office and we photocopied it. And I'm rushing around because I got to go to the airport the next morning. And then because he's so young, I said, okay, you have to go knock on this door. It was in our neighborhood, but I didn't know who lived there. And we practiced his pitch, his 30-second pitch, right? So somebody opens the door and you've got this little boy, and he gives his pitch and the wife brings the husband out and he does the pitch again. And the next thing you know, the door closes and my son walks to the garage and they were opening up the garage door and the gentleman hired Connor, but he wanted to show him his favorite sports car he just bought because he was a very successful entrepreneur. And he had tears, kind of makes me emotional right now. He had tears in his eyes, this man, because, he worked so hard to get ahead. And when a young entrepreneur knocks on the door, it's like a family, you're not going to say no. It's impossible to say no. And I mean, if you want to be a medical doctor, then, you need to go to school, get really good marks and, do very well, go to school. Great. If you want to be a medical doctor. If you want to be a business owner, an entrepreneur, if you want to make more money, then you don't need to go to university. You don't need to get a degree. So first of all, I want to say you have to do what you really want to do. You have to do what's passionate, right? If you want to be a doctor, this advice isn't for you. Please go to school and become very good, do very well on tests, because I want you to be a good doctor for me. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, then you've got to do entrepreneurial things. And you have an advantage right now. Anything you want to sell, I'm going to take your phone call and I'm probably going to buy it, even if I don't need it. Okay?
Okay.
So that's why I suggested you start a business, because you're young, you've got good attitude, and you might as well start failing now when you're young, because you're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes. You might as well do it while you're young.
Yeah, well, thanks for the advice. And
Okay.
just two more brief questions. First, what advice would you give to anyone for them to be successful financially and in business?
Well, I mean, I'll look at it this way. Robert Kiyosaki created a cash flow game, which I talked about earlier. And the object of the game is to get out of the rat race. And one of the big reasons I'm so passionate about helping people in Mexico is I believe the Mexican people work way too hard for way too long for way less money than they should, than they deserve, right? But it's just ingrained in people. I mean, there's people outside my neighborhood, they're working outdoors, it's hot, long days, it's hard work. You don't get paid very much money. So the first thing is, what I want people to do is sacrifice a little bit. Nothing's easy, but anybody can do it. So if I look at some of the people in Mexico that make a very low amount of money, it's not easy to get started, but save some money, do some research on investing, and invest a little bit of money and let it grow. And then just keep investing more and let the profits grow more, so that eventually you can become financially free. And you can become financially free in like literally 5 years, 10 years, if you're really dedicated to it. And almost everybody listening can do it. Instead of buying a Starbucks, make your own coffee at home. Save $2 a day, for instance. Make your lunch instead of buying it somewhere. Things like that. You can sacrifice. It's not easy, but sacrifice for a little bit when you're young, and your income can grow passively. So the first thing is, that's what everybody should be focused on, is create passive income so you're not handcuffed to a job. Okay. Now, second of all, if you're going to have a business, Ken McElroy taught me this about 10 years ago. And Ken is also a Rich Dad advisor. And him and I bought 5,000 properties together through his recommendations. And he taught me his business is financially free. So not just he is financially free, his business is financially free. So that got my mind thinking, how can I make sure my business is financially free? So during COVID, for instance, it didn't really impact me at all, because even if our sales go to zero, the businesses that I built them so they're financially free. And it's a deep thought, but if you're going to be in business, like, why be in business to be small? Why be in business to be stressed all the time? Business is supposed to be so you can live a better life and help a lot of people along the way. So I just think that, what I would suggest is, like, just keep growing as a person, keep studying, keep, here's the latest book I'm reading. It's on leadership.
Extreme ownership, yeah.
Just grow. And the more you grow, the more money you make. What I find is you help more people.
Yeah.
At least in Canada, if you go to a hospital, the children's ward or the kidney area, typically there's a name on the wall when you walk in, and somebody donated millions and millions of dollars to have that wing to help the children or the heart area or whatever. So what I find is these business people eventually, I have a nice car, I have a nice house, I don't need anything else. So eventually what happens is people that have a business, they just give back. So, have that mission, that passion to say, okay, I'm going to grow my business, and not just for me, but to help more people out. And then you can always give back to society.
Yeah, totally agree. And well, my last question has to do with learning. So is there any concept you have learned or read recently that you would like to share to us?
Well, I mean, again, just from what I learned with Robert, was he really ignited the learner inside me. So I would say, like, whatever it is you're passionate about, you can also make money if that's what you want to do. anything in the world, if you're passionate about something, you can make money. So whether it's playing the piano or doing podcasts, you can make money at it. So just always be a lifelong learner, be challenging yourself to say, this is my most important asset, and it differentiates you from everybody else. Nobody can compete with the way you think. So if you think differently and you're determined, take advantage of it, because I think that's what sets apart a successful entrepreneur versus somebody who gets comfortable and doesn't ever reach their goals. So I'm a lifelong learner now. So I read different books, I take different courses. And the nice thing about learning, though, for me is I just want to learn certain things. I don't want to take calculus in school. I don't want to learn that. I just want to learn things that I enjoy to learn. So that's what I would say. Embrace it. Unfortunately, a lot of people in school, their spirit was crushed. If that's the case, just say, hey, it's over. Start learning every day about something you enjoy.
Okay, great advice. And
Yeah.
well, thanks again, Darren, for all the learning you have given to us. And thanks for accepting my invitation again. So
absolutely. And if you need some other people to do webinars with, I have a pretty good Rolodex. So just let me know.
Oh, thanks. And well, is there just anything else you would like to add besides what you have just told us?
No, I'm just really proud of what you're doing. Taking action is really important, and you're a young man who's going to be, a very good leader in Mexico. And I think that's the most important thing. Is I'm just proud to know you and to have met you. And Mexico needs more leaders. They need another generation to think differently. So I think Mexico's going to be very happy with you in the long run. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, and you obviously have good parents as well. So give your parents a hug when you get off the Zoom.
Okay, yeah, I will. Thanks.
Okay.
And
Take
well,
care.
thanks again for joining again. And well, I was just telling Mariana that I wanted to send you two of these T-shirts, and they are of my brand, of my page. And well, yeah, that's it. She told me that she will send me the address later. So yeah. And thanks again for the part.
Yeah, I appreciate the gift, and I'll wear it proudly.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, take care.
Same. Bye.
My friend. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. I hope you did receive value from this episode and learned something useful. If you like the content, drop a follow on any platform you are listening to this interview and share it. That way more people benefit from this content. Thanks again.